Comedians collapse in front of millions, pyrotechnics turn clubs into fire traps, and massive crowds erupt into riots. These are more disturbing things that happened during live performances. On April 15, 1984, comedian and magician Tommy Cooper was performing live on British television in front of an estimated 12 million viewers. He was midway through his act, being filmed live at Her Majesty's Theatre in London. Cooper had just been helped into a long cloak for a sketch, with host Jimmy Tarbuck backstage ready to pass him props. His last clear words were "Thank you, love," said to the assistant who helped him dress, and then seconds later, Cooper collapsed backwards on stage. The assistant smiled, thinking it was part of the routine, and the audience laughed too because Cooper's whole act was built around things going wrong. And even when he stayed down, people assumed he was just stretching out the joke. A hand briefly appeared from behind the curtain, someone backstage trying to help, but from the audience's point of view, it still just looked like comedy. Behind the scenes though, it quickly became clear something was wrong. The director called for an unscheduled commercial break while crew members tried to help Cooper behind the curtain. And the show continued. Other performers went on stage just feet away while the crew was busy trying to revive him behind the curtain. Cooper was eventually rushed to Westminster Hospital, where he was pronounced dead on arrival. He was 63 years old. His death wasn't officially announced until the following morning, so millions of people unknowingly watched a man die live on television. On February 20th, 2003, the band Great White was playing a packed show at the Station Nightclub in Rhode Island. Just seconds into the opening song, the band's tour manager set off indoor pyrotechnics. The sparks immediately ignited the foam soundproofing around the stage, and in about 30 seconds, flames were crawling across the ceiling. Most people in the crowd didn't panic at first. A lot of them thought the fire was part of the show, which cost them precious time. When the reality finally hit, nearly everyone rushed toward the main entrance that they'd come through, even though there were other exits. That doorway quickly became jammed as smoke filled the room and visibility dropped to almost nothing. The fire moved incredibly fast. The entire building was engulfed in under 6 minutes. 100 people died, and more than 200 others were injured. Several victims were found piled near that front door, trapped in a bottleneck, just feet from getting out. There was a long list of failures here. The foam used inside the club was not fire resistant. The pyrotechnics were not approved, and the venue was just overcrowded. There ended up being criminal charges against the band's tour manager and the club owners.
So, well, it's because,
What you just saw there was musician Tiny Tim collapsing from a heart attack on stage. Now, that one was not fatal, but sadly his next one was. Tiny Tim was one of the strangest and most recognizable performers to ever step on stage. He became famous in the late 60s for his signature high-pitched falsetto and ukulele. By the 90s, Tiny Tim was no longer a mainstream star, but he never stopped performing. Music was just his entire life. Behind the scenes though, his health was falling apart. He had diabetes, high blood pressure, and serious heart problems, all of which were made worse by years of stress and non-stop touring. On September 12, 1996, while performing at a ukulele festival in Montague, Massachusetts, Tiny Tim suffered the first heart attack on stage. He was rushed to the hospital. He stayed there for about 3 weeks. Doctors warned him very clearly not to perform again, telling him the strain could kill him. Tiny Tim ignored that advice. Entertaining people was what he lived for, and he just couldn't go on without it. Just over 2 months later, he was performing at a gala benefit for the Women's Club of Minneapolis. Before going on, he told his wife he wasn't feeling well, but insisted on performing anyway. In the middle of Tiptoe Through the Tulips, Tiny Tim suffered another heart attack. He collapsed, and this time, he never regained consciousness. He was pronounced dead later that night at the hospital. He was 64 years old. Christina Grimmie first became known in 2009, posting song covers on YouTube. Her channel exploded, and by her late teens, she had millions of subscribers. She was releasing her own music and later reached an even bigger audience after competing on The Voice. On June 10th, 2016, Grimmie performed at the Plaza, live in Orlando, Florida, opening for the band Before You Exit. After the show ended around 10 p.m., she stayed inside the venue to do what she always did, a meet and greet. Fans lined up as she signed autographs and took photos. Around 10:24 p.m., a man named Kevin James Loibel stepped forward When it was his turn, Grimmie opened her arms to hug him. Instead, he pulled out a firearm, hit her 3 times at point-blank range. Grimmie's brother, who was nearby selling merchandise, immediately rushed the attacker and tackled him. During the struggle, Leubel broke free, backed against a wall, turned the weapon on himself. Grimmie was rushed to the hospital in critical condition, but she was pronounced dead less than an hour later. She was only 22. Investigators later said the attacker had traveled specifically to Orlando to end her life, bringing multiple weapons into a venue that had no metal detectors. In 1992, 2 of the biggest bands at the time, Guns N' Roses and Metallica, were headlining a tour together. Their night in Montreal, Canada, would go down as one of the worst concerts in the history of either band. On August 8th, during Metallica's set at Montreal's Olympic Stadium, James Hetfield accidentally stepped into a pyrotechnic flash, which severely burned him. The band immediately cut their set short, and Hetfield was rushed to the hospital. Lars Ulrich, Kirk Hammett, and Jason Newsted came back on stage to tell the crowd that the show just couldn't continue. After a 2.5-hour delay, Guns N' Roses finally hit the stage, but the rush between sets meant their stage monitors weren't tuned properly, and Axl Rose was dealing with vocal problems from a recent diagnosis, so he just got fed up, and after just 9 songs, he snapped, he threw his microphone and just told the audience their money would be refunded, and they walked off stage. What followed was chaos. About 2,000 people started rioting in and around the stadium. Police cars were flipped over, souvenir booths were looted, and the fans started setting fires. Footage of the riot ended up in Metallica's documentary, A Year and a Half in the Life of Metallica, because, how could you not include that? In 1984, Michael Jackson was at the absolute peak of his fame. While filming a commercial for Pepsi in front of 3,000 fans at the Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles, something happened that would affect him for the rest of his life. The script called for a massive pyrotechnic display to go off behind him as he descended a set of stairs. During the 6th take of the night, something went wrong with the timing. The flares exploded too early, showering Michael Jackson in sparks while he was still right in the middle of the blast zone. Michael didn't realize he was on fire at first. He continued to dance and spin down the stairs with his hair engulfed in flames. It wasn't until his security team and the film crew tackled him to the ground that the crowd realized this was not a special effect. He was rushed to the hospital with 2nd and 3rd degree burns on his scalp, which left him with a permanent bald spot and chronic pain for the rest of his life. A lot of people point to this exact moment as the turning point in his life. The heavy painkillers he was prescribed for his scalp injuries eventually led to the dependency issues that would plague him until his death decades later. The Pukkelpop festival in Belgium is usually a highlight of the European summer, but in 2011 it was a total disaster. A massive storm hit the festival grounds with almost 0 warning, with winds reaching over 100 miles per hour. In seconds, the sky went from gray to pitch black, and the force of the wind didn't just blow umbrellas away, it literally uprooted massive trees and sent them crashing into the crowd. Giant LED screens that were supposed to be bolted down were ripped from the stages, and the massive chateau tent, a huge structure that was packed with thousands of people trying to take cover from the rain, that just folded in on itself. As the poles buckled, the heavy canvas trapped people underneath. 5 people ended up losing their lives that afternoon, and over 140 more were injured. And it took hours for rescue crews to reach the site because the roads were blocked by fallen trees. One of the most infamous live performance disasters happened to Siegfried and Roy in 2003. During their magic show at the Mirage in Las Vegas on October 3rd, Roy Horn was attacked by Manticore, a 400-pound white tiger. The show started normally, but when Horn tried to guide Manticore into position, the tiger bit his sleeve. Horn lightly tapped the tiger with his microphone, and it let go, but then leapt at him, knocking him down and biting his neck before attempting to drag him off stage. Trainers finally got the tiger to release Horn by spraying a fire extinguisher and jamming their fingers into its mouth. Horn was critically injured. His spine was severed, and he suffered a stroke either before or after the attack. Injuries left him partially paralyzed on the left side with permanent motor and speech problems. The pair staff of 267 shut down the show immediately. Cameras captured the attack, but Thankfully, footage was never released to the public. We could do an entire video on this last event alone, the infamous Woodstock '99. Where do I begin with this one? This was supposed to celebrate 30 years since the original Woodstock, but it quickly turned into a disaster. It ran July 22nd to 25th at the old Griffiths Air Force Base in Rome, New York, with somewhere between 220,000 to 400,000 people showing up. The whole site was flat asphalt and concrete, roasting in 100-degree Fahrenheit heat. There was almost no shade. Water was insanely overpriced for some reason, and toilets were overflowing. People were stuck baking in the sun with no way to cool off. Security was also a mess, and things just got ugly. Mosh pits were breaking out into straight-up fights. There was SA right there in the crowd at times, and tension just continued to build all weekend. By the last night, the crowd completely lost it. People were flipping over booths, smashing equipment, and starting fires. Candles that had been handed out for a peace vigil, those got turned into torches. Bands like Limp Bizkit and Rage Against the Machine kept playing as fires burned nearby, with security struggling to get control and some fans attacking staff. Looting happened everywhere, from food stands to merch tents, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's a whole documentary on this show. 3 people ended up dying. 1 collapsed in a mosh pit from heat, another had pre-existing health issues, and a third was hit by a car after leaving. But hundreds more ended up in medical tents with heat stroke and dehydration, just injuries from being trampled or caught in fights. Woodstock '99 is still regarded as one of the most disastrous music festivals in history. I've been your host, James, and I will catch you, yes you specifically, in the next video.